Today I want to talk about a notion or a philosophy within Christendom known as dispensationalism. And I want to tie that in to some economic theory because I think it's important because I want to try to explain something to some friends who have some similar economic viewpoints as I do. They're not necessarily Christians. Many of them, don't hold much religious viewpoints at all, but they definitely want to see what they deem a better America. They want to see more liberty. And in this sense, myself and they agree. But I want to try to be helpful to help them understand a couple of things. There was a post in question about how some who may like various strains of Ron Paul thinking, particularly on economics, and maybe also very open to the idea of true free enterprise or a political economic paradigm that promotes something called anarcho-capitalism, which in many ways is very could be deemed very radical because it basically is a total free market structure, even when it has some disagreements with various thoughts of the Constitution. Yet many people who I know who are Christians, if I explain this branch of economics, they might actually be very open to the idea of it. However, and this post came up recently, somebody had mentioned a comment Glenn Beck made where they said Glenn Beck was an anarcho-capitalist. I don't really know if that's true or not, but I mean, in some ways, he could lean in that direction. Yet they just wondered how he could be that way, and also have his foreign policy views that he does. And they mentioned some other guys who are of that strain of thinking economically, anarcho-capitalism. Yet they had a very what could be considered a heavy-handed foreign policy viewpoint, where America is greatly engaged in the affairs of the world, the Middle East, or whatever. And people said they couldn't understand how it's inconsistent. And ultimately, I agree with that point of view, but I want to make some points that my friends who are not religious may even have an animosity towards the Bible, that they can know some things. It might be helpful to them if they're ever having an open discussion about some people who may be open to the idea of a philosophical viewpoint that is not so socially conservative, but ultimately would be best for all. It could even be an ally with social conservative thought if they listen to it. But some things have to be addressed along the way. There's a school of biblical philosophy, and it's really recent. When I say recent, it's not something that was since the beginning of the early church. It basically came out in the 1800s, and it's called dispensationalism. In this viewpoint, and it's a very unique reading of the Bible using interpretive methods that I think are incorrect, unusual, whatever, but it's held by a lot of varieties of Christians. And unlike people who are basically following any philosophy based upon man as the supreme end, which a lot of my friends do on economic blogs, there are those of us who ultimately think God is the supreme end. So we make our decisions based upon what we think God would want us to do. And we do that through a Christian or biblical worldview. Now, it doesn't mean we say there's everything in the Bible specifically tells you how to do everything, but there are underlying principles that we want to follow, and we trust in them better than any other worldly philosophy. So we follow a biblical train of thought. However, if the biblical view we have is based on an erroneous interpretation of Scripture, it's problematic, and I could see why some friends of mine who are not religious could be annoyed with that. And I want to apologize for what I consider some incorrect strains of theology, namely dispensationalism, but I want to explain to people what it is and maybe how they should approach it. Dispensationalism is a viewpoint that God has a specific plan for the Jewish people. They think that God had a covenant with the Jews, although in reality it was a covenant with Abraham, and God holds out promises to the Jewish people, and he holds out promises to the nation of Israel in particular. Although I would argue that God's chosen people now, the children of Abraham like they always were, that would be the church of Jesus Christ, because we are fulfilling the covenants and the promises of God. We have not rejected Christ, we are following Christ. So in essence, the church, true Christians, are really Israel today. Israel, the true born again, so to speak, Israel, And the Jews, or the people of Israel, in many ways are apostate and they've rejected Christ. I don't want to get heavy on the theology, but this is really important to think about, because now when you're trying to have a coalition to form to maybe make the world a better place, and you're really trying to be ecumenical in discussing ways to try to reach people regarding political philosophies that you might think may help the country better, you have to realize that a lot of Christians I know, they like a lot about Ron Paul, but they say he's disqualified to be president because he doesn't support Israel, which they think is a biblical mandate. I don't agree with that. I don't think we as Christians are mandated to support Israel any more than we're mandated to support Palestine. That's really an issue that is beyond our sovereignty, beyond our interest, and we should ultimately think of the sovereignty and interest of the United States. Doesn't mean we can have a preference of who we think is maybe better, Israel or the Muslim people, whatever. These things are side issues. The point of the matter is, many people who believe in the Bible and believe, in following God, think that, the most important things Americans can do is have a foreign policy that is biblical. And through a lot of weird, odd interpretations of Scripture, a lot of people, therefore, are more comfortable with choosing a Michelle Bachmann or, I don't know, maybe a Herman Cain, Newt Gingrich, whatever, than a Ron Paul. And this is an important thing to know, because when you're having a discussion about, who's going to vote for a potential president of the United States, foreign policy plays just as much into somebody's mindset, or a lot of people's mindset, as economic policy. And if somebody has the economic viewpoint, you like and they like, they may say that's fine, but ultimately he's too far off on this particular issue, so I can't vote for him. This is just what I wanted, the people to think about. But there are Christians in the realm of, economic theory who believe in, Austrian economics, who believe in, Ron Paul, who don't believe that, we have a biblical mandate to support Israel or to be involved in all these foreign wars, because somehow we're destined by God to play some type of a great part in a great grand scheme of things. We are to be serving the self-interest of the American people. We should not be so socially concerned about a lot of things that are none of our business. And I think that's a biblical point of view. So we need to sometimes approach people with a biblical point of view, and that is one that is different from dispensationalism, then in order to get them to go along with something we think is also important, that's economics. I guess the point I'm really trying to make is, I think it is very important for people who are, maybe either atheist or not into religion, to try to meet as many Christian friends as they can who share their points of view, and ask them to hopefully talk to other friends they meet or people they meet who are Christians, who may dismiss Ron Paul, or dismiss a lot of their theory because they don't think it's biblical, rather than just say, oh, those crazy Christians, I don't want to reach them, so I'll try to reach another group of people, maybe some real secular liberals or people who are like, I don't know, whatever, that they think maybe I can get them into the Ron Paul side and just dismiss, what they call the fringe right, or the overly social conservative, Christian paradigm, which they find distasteful, because in many ways, those people do have a view that I, as a Christian, aren't a proponent of. And I too want to get many Christians I know, care about, and actually think love God, to see the error of their ways. If we do that, a different school of economic thought could have great inroads. How many evangelicals around this country? There's so many of them. If a great majority of them come over to the libertarian-leaning side, we could change the world. My thoughts. Till next time. Signing out. Have a good day.